We are monitoring reports as Israeli troops are expected to enter Gaza City. According to military officials, the troops have split Gaza in half. They are encircling the northern city from the rest of the territory. And there are growing concerns that these attacks will impact the hostage releases. More than 200 hostages are believed to be held right now by Hamas in Gaza. Joining me now, award-winning documentary filmmaker Alex Traiman. He is also the CEO of the Jewish News Syndicate. Alex, welcome back to the program. I want to start with what's happening in Gaza. What are your sources telling you on the ground and how imminent this next phase will be?
Well, the IDF has essentially taken about a quarter of the Gaza Strip. They've encapsulated and enclosed Gaza City, both from the north, the south, east, and the west, and are moving into this stronghold, the largest city inside the Gaza Strip, where most of Hamas's infrastructure is believed to be housed, including weapons depots and also tunnel infrastructure. And there's no way that Israel can ensure that Hamas is removed from power if it cannot take over the city.
Talk about the concerns, though, for the hostages, more than 200 who are likely in this tunnel system, and how the IDF is approaching that delicate part of this battle.
Yeah, obviously the tunnel system is highly booby-trapped, and it's a difficult fighting environment that the Hamas militants have been practicing in for a long time, and it is believed that most of the hostages are down there. The IDF has had little choice but to actually bomb the entrances to most of these tunnels and is trying to destroy the network. Of course, you do have this consideration of trying to rescue as many hostages as possible. The IDF is going on intelligence to decipher where to enter and try to recover hostages and where not. But to be honest, I think that the primary objective of the IDF is to dismantle Hamas as fast as possible, and to assume that they may not get back the hostages, even though it is one of the primary objectives to recover them.
Discuss what's happening in northern Israel right now, Alex. A lot of Israelis have fled to the south because of fighting along the border with Lebanon and concerns about Hezbollah.
Right. Everybody talks about the number of displaced Gazans, but over 200,000 Israelis have been displaced since this war started, including many in the north. And the northern border with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon has really heated up over the last several days. Within the last hour, it's believed that as many as 30 rockets were fired from the north, which would be a significant escalation from Hezbollah. And there's this feeling that as the border continues to get hotter and hotter and hotter, that we may be just moments or days away from a full-fledged multi-front conflict.
Right. On another level, there is a meeting that's gotten a lot of attention. The newly appointed U.S. ambassador to Israel, Jack Lew, met with the Israeli president, Herzog, in the last couple of days. Talk about what was discussed in that meeting and if anything came of it.
Well, sure. Jack Lew, former Treasury Secretary, is now ambassador to Israel. He was fast-tracked into the post after Thomas Nides resigned from the post in July, and since the war started, he presented his credentials. Certainly, he's going to be carrying out the policies of the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who on the one hand has been expressing his support for Israel in its military campaign to dismantle Hamas and Israel's right to defend itself. At the same time, trying to continuously press Israel to do everything that it can to protect civilian casualties in Gaza and provide humanitarian assistance, which includes what Blinken has referred to as humanitarian pause, is something that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not inclined to do right now as the IDF continues to move forward full speed ahead.
And is there any scenario where that changes?
I don't think so. To be honest, I think that in Jerusalem, they understand that there's probably a limited window of time that they have to carry out the operation. And so speed is certainly of the essence. There's not been, there were pushes to delay the beginning of the operation by Blinken and the Biden administration, where he's starting to get word that the Biden administration would like to see the conflict end within a matter of weeks. And so to have pauses in the middle is yet another difficulty for Israel. And until hostages are freed, I can't see Israel agreeing to any kind of additional humanitarian pauses in over and above what they've done to create the safe areas in the southern Gaza Strip for humanitarian aid to enter.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.